The new budget iPads that we should be expecting around the March/April timeframe this year have got some more leaks and evidence to support that they are coming out, and the other good news is Apple's earnings revenue came out yesterday, and while the iPhones are definitely falling in shipments and overall revenue is not as good as it used to be, the iPads actually exceeded expectations, almost making over $1 billion than expected, which is good news for you iPad-loving fans out there, because that means Apple sees the potential, they see the growth in that iPad market, which means they're probably going to be investing more into it. They want to make the pros better, probably both with software and hardware, and as we're talking about in today's video, accessibility, getting iPads as affordable and as powerful as possible so that people who don't have the huge budget to spend on new laptops or new computers, they'll be able to suffice with a much more portable and affordable tablet. And today, sounds like they'll be sporting some of the more pro accessories that the budget iPads haven't had in the past, and I'll fill you in with the details now. Let's begin. So first of all, as I'm sure a ton of people are already commenting this, you probably want me to talk about the FaceTime glitch thing that's been happening. I thought I would summarize it very, very quickly. Yes, it was a big problem, but yes, Apple's also working on it. As Rene Ritchie said, recent guest star of the Talos of Tech podcast, link in the description, all companies have glitches, all companies have errors. The difference is how they handle the situation, and it appears that Apple has been very quick and very vocal about trying to fix the situation with the FaceTime bug as quick as possible, and I think the tech YouTube community yesterday kind of beat Apple over the head with this subject. So no, I'm not going to make a video about it because you've all heard it nonstop since yesterday. So moving on from that topic, let's talk about future iPads. This latest leak is suggesting that the iPad mini 5, as well as this new budget end iPad, which is rumored to have a slightly larger display, thinning down those bezels at a 10-inch length, of course diagonally. That is a slight increase in size compared to last year's 9.7-inch iPad. Once again, they'll be changing the iPad lineup specifications again, which is going to make things fairly confusing now because we have 12.9-inch iPad Pro, 11-inch iPad Pro, and then this year we'll have 10-inch iPad and 7.9-inch iPad mini 5. But the rumor is suggesting that both of these new budget iPads are going to be supporting Apple Pencil support, which may not be new to the budget iPads, but it is new to the iPad mini lineup, which has not had any Apple stylus supported devices yet. And they're also both going to be supporting some type of smart keyboard technology, which opens up a lot of questions for me. For one, does this mean they're going to be supporting the old-fashioned looking smart connector that we saw on previous generation iPad Pros? They put the 3 little pins on the side of the iPad, that way it can dock in with your smart keyboard, and that keyboard can get power and connect to your iPad very, very seamlessly. There's no setup process, there's no charging for that keyboard. It simply docks into the iPad and works. But at the same time, it makes me wonder if they're going to make the smart keyboard design a little bit more familiar with what we saw on last year's iPad Pros, with the smart connector being on the back. That way, the smart folio cases out there and the smart keyboards actually dock and wrap around the iPad in there entirely, which provides more coverage and protection opposed to previous generation smart keyboards, which just kind of covered up the glass but not the back. However, with that extra protection, Apple typically charges a little bit more, which oftentimes I get pretty annoyed by when a market is trying to be affordable and it's trying to be cheap, and Apple's trying to say, hey, this isn't that expensive, but then you buy it and you want the keyboard to go along with it, and it ends up costing like $150. And it's like, okay, that's half the price of the iPad itself, which is a lot of money you're spending on an accessory. So who knows where they'll put the smart connector, but I have a bigger problem than that even. Bringing a smart keyboard potentially to the iPad mini 5, maybe I'm the only one remembering this, but the iPad mini is a very small device. That's a very small tablet, and even someone out there who's trying to replace a lot of laptop functions with their tablet, do you guys know of that many popular 8-inch laptops out there? Yeah, that's right, a laptop with an 8-inch display. It's not incredibly common. I'm sure some of you can find it and look it up, but that is a very, very small display. On top of that, a very, very tiny keyboard, because the idea of the smart keyboard case is that you get your keys along with your tablet, and it's able to double as a case, which means that it is no bigger in surface area than the iPad mini itself. You can go on Amazon and you can go Google search what the iPad mini keyboards used to look like. I don't know, maybe they were a big market, but from the most part, if I look up these pictures, I see these super, super tiny keys that people were able to stuff onto these tiny tablets. And hey, I don't know, maybe some people are okay with that, maybe some people like that, but in my opinion, those keyboards look so incredibly tiny and ridiculous, it would feel like a children's toy trying to type on that keyboard. Even though it is physical, it has to stay within the parameters of that iPad mini footprint, which is just way too tiny. And if Apple's gonna try to market that, I don't know, maybe some people will buy it, but definitely not me or anyone I know, because for the most part, I'm just a huge fan of love big displays, and I like getting the biggest display possible I can on all my devices. You know, I have the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I use the iPhone XS Max on the daily, I use the 44mm Apple Watch. So someone advertising to me like a tablet iOS experience, but it's on an 8-inch display, and then typing on that tiny keyboard just sounds ridiculous to me. But perhaps there's a market out there for it, maybe for people with much smaller hands than me. But yeah, it makes me really question the credibility of this article and makes me think, are they really going to do that? And if they are, why? Why would they do that? How much is that going to cost? But the second piece of information is far more encouraging, that I am excited to see Apple Pencil support being brought to the iPad Mini 5. This is a long overdue demand that I've heard from a lot of consumers out there, and a lot of people have said that the iPad Mini would actually be one of the perfect devices to have Apple Pencil support, because it's the only iPad that, for the most part, everyone can fit in one hand. It's still a tablet, it's still a 4x3 design, and while I get that the display is not too drastically different from the size of a XS Max, both that aspect ratio and the screen real estate you're working with, and the fact that it runs the iPad version of iOS that supports picture-in-picture and split screen, and a lot of those multitasking features that Apple has decided isn't worthy for the iPhone, you can still get all of those on the iPad. And a lot of people in the medical profession have actually contacted me saying that if you had Apple Pencil support with an iPad Mini, it would be a brilliant note-taking experience, because the device itself, the display, can still fit in one hand, and then with the other hand, you can be using Apple's own intuitive stylus that would sync up with the iPad very nicely and work probably much better than any other stylus you can buy out there, and be able to take your notes like you would on a notepad, which I don't know if I would do that myself because I'm just not the note-taking type, but I get that it would probably be very common for students out there who maybe already have a laptop and need to do desktop type things for their classes or their schools anyway, but then they're looking for something that they can easily pack around with them for note-taking, and they're on the go a lot. They're walking around either the hospital or their campus a lot, and they need to write down things. Making sure that they have a little technologically advanced notepad taking experience everywhere they go, I think could actually be a big hit, particularly if the iPad Mini is at a very, very affordable price. Hopefully under $300, I think, would be key. And I also think that as a compromise for the fact that, hey, the Apple Pencil 2 has already come out, and that's like way better both with docking and charging than it is on the older Lightning supported iPads with the first generation Apple Pencil with that awkward charging method. Maybe to compensate for that awkward charging method and the fact that the Apple Pencil 2 is so much better but likely won't be supported on these new iPads, they could just lower the price of the first gen Apple Pencil. It doesn't have to be much, but seriously, if they could start the first generation Apple Pencil at closer to like $60 to $50, that would be such a popular combo, I think, for a ton of students out there. They could be like, okay, I already have a laptop or I already have a computer of some sort for my school stuff, but I want something small, portable that I can pack around with me and be able to take notes on. Okay, iPad Mini starts at under $300, then I can get a $50 to $60 Apple Pencil to go along with it. You can charge the Apple Pencil with the iPad Mini. It's not ideal, but you can still do it, and then take notes with you as you're on the go. That, I think, would be a super sweet combo, and Apple could even see iPad sales do better in 2019 and get those prices right. If the iPad Mini 5 ends up costing $350 and then the Apple Pencil is still $100, I'll be like, yeah, okay, it's like $500 for a note-taking experience, but I don't know. There's a lot of people who love that screen size anyway, and they may be flocking to that as Apple releases it, but time, of course, will tell. I personally wanted to throw in a little bit of a wish list idea. There's been no evidence to support this, but personally, I know this is going to confuse a lot of people out there, but I wish the new budget iPads this year would support USB-C, given that we've already seen some rumors suggesting that the iPhone might have USB-C, which I get it. We've had rumors like that in the past, but the difference is in 2019, we're entering the year with iOS devices that already have USB-C, like the new iPads. So we know Apple is comfortable with the idea of removing Lightning from certain Pro devices and replacing it with USB-C, and now there's rumors that they might do USB-C on the iPhones. We don't know for sure, but I think if they unified the iPad lineup a little bit and just had USB-C with all of the iPads, both Pros and budget, it would be much, much easier for people to know which cables and which chargers to buy here on moving out. And I know that the old Apple Pencil wouldn't work with that because the Apple Pencil has Lightning, which is why I would just say make a more affordable Apple Pencil that supports USB-C. Maybe it doesn't have the cap that's so easy to lose on top, or perhaps the new budget iPads could sport the more boxy square design, just maybe not as crazy thin as the iPad Pros are, as there's been many cases of those bending. Just make a slightly thicker, boxier budget iPad. That way the Apple Pencil 2 actually could support the new iPads, but that's wishful thinking. I doubt that'll happen. They're probably still going to support Touch ID, those standard old traditional bezels, as well as the lightning port, and still likely a headphone jack for the people out there who want it. So let me know what you guys would like to see on the iPad Mini 5, as well as the new 10-inch budget iPad, probably coming in just a couple months. All that good stuff, let me know what you're thinking down in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.